Something's happening.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can see something. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I've never done it this way, so just bear with me. Right, so today we're going to be talking about the world of reading and sort of using our curriculum and the way that we teach to unlock that sort of pleasure for reading and also those reading skills with our children. Please feel free to jump in at any point if you have any questions, and there are some points of reflection, so if you want to join in and sort of help sort of elaborate your thoughts and ideas, that would be great. So first of all, I just wanted to share with you some of these quotes here. And to me, they're quite special quotes and they mean something to me personally. So I'll just read a couple of them out to you. A child who reads will be an adult who thinks. The more you read, the more things you will know, the more that you learn, the more places you'll go. Hopefully some of you will recognise that. Reading is important. If you know how to read, then the whole world opens up to you. And the last one, reading is dreaming with your eyes open. So the question I really want you to think about is what do you truly believe about reading? Me personally, for those who don't know me, I didn't even introduce myself. My apologies. I'm Anita Thakore. I work at Avanti Fields and I'm the head of primary there. And I am quite passionate about reading. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it is because I am not a good reader. And I felt always quite on the back foot regarding reading. I think I'm possibly dyslexic. So for me, unlocking reading for children and having that love for reading to me is really important, because I felt that was something I couldn't access as a child. And I feel that all children should be entitled to that. So I'm hoping you're all going to say to me that those sort of those quotes sort of resonate with you in some form. Has anyone got anything they would like to say about those quotes, or whether they've seen any better ones?
I think the first one, like the child that reads will be an adult who thinks. You can really notice a difference in a child's writing when they are good readers, and you can like see that vocabulary and things coming through, and then when they're in their use of vocabulary and how they're speaking, that comes through a lot when they are reading a lot as well. So I think that one, yeah, is definitely accurate.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you. So I'm making an assumption here that these quotes or similar quotes do resonate with you in some way. But the question is how much do we get to really put those concepts into practice? How is it reflective in your school's curriculum design? Does your curriculum allow for these things to happen? And is it reflective in your environments? You know, I might be talking to a teaching assistant, I might be talking to a teacher, a senior leader. When we think about reading, we should think of it as a whole school strategy, and we all play a part in that. So whether that's the environment in the room that you work in or the whole school areas, is it reflective? How is it reflective in your day-to-day practice? Do you show your enthusiasm for reading when you're reading storybooks? Do you have books readily available for children to access? And is reading prioritised on all levels in the school? And that's really fundamental to have a strong reading ethos within your school, is that everyone truly believes those that reading is a priority and sort of lives and breathes by it, and make sure that you know, all elements and strands of the curriculum really do support that. So the thing about reading, it is about finding that balance, because we have that sort of love for reading aspect of it, and then we have the element of becoming a proficient reader, and sometimes the balance seems to sway from one side to the other, and it's time to really sort of make sure that you feel that as a school or as a teacher, or like I said, whatever level you're at, do you feel that we have that balance for our children in school? And you know, just homing in on sort of that love for reading aspect of it, I just wanted to pull your eyes towards this research about reading for pleasure, and sort of what are the key outcomes that was said about reading for pleasure. So I'm just going to share that with you first. So the key elements about reading for pleasure was that talk about choice, the talk about incentives and rewards for children, and making sure that those incentives and rewards are actually quite clear and bespoke to reading. The role of parents and carers and the home environment. I'm not sure how many of you are working in the early years. Can we just give a shout out if you're in the early years? Brilliant. So not all of us get to do those home visits. I know at my school we don't get to do home visits, but do you know the environments that our children come through? I can see a hand up here. Just shout out absolutely if you want to. Oh, you put a hand up to say you're in the early years. Okay, that's fine. Feel free to just open your mic and speak at any point. Yeah, so do you really know the environments that the children come through? And have you managed to get those parents on board? I found it really interesting opening the primary phase of Anti-Fields about how involved our parents want to be, but how poor they are at filling out their reading diaries. But the truth is they are actually reading at home. They're just not filling out the diaries. So it's really interesting thinking about, you know, how do you capture home reading? How do you know it's really going on? It's just something worth thinking about. And, you know, do you have those opportunities where parents and carers are able to come in and see good practice, or even just joining in sort of that, you know, love for reading aspect of it? The importance of resources here, you know, I'm sure we could all have a long wish list on sort of resources that we don't have, but making sure that we have the basics, you know, a strong library with a variety of books, reading areas that have, you know, books that are not looking tattered, that have a range that reflect the topics that the children are learning about, but also other elements that they can delve into because they personally enjoy it. Thinking about not just books, so you've got the story sacks, you've got magazines, even newspapers, you know, giving children being able to see reading in different contexts. The school promotion of that reading for pleasure was a key element that came out of that. So what structures do you have in place? So that bit that was talking about at the beginning about your curriculum, your design, and how dates are built into your diary. I always think it's really interesting when we start thinking about dates in the diary, and all of a sudden you have 1 million dates and there's not one week that's free. Some of you are smiling at me because everything's got something's going on, and we do need to find that balance. We can't have something going on every week, otherwise we won't be able to do the curriculum properly. There can't be a drop-down day for everything, but you know, have we really thought about reading when we're thinking about those key diaries? And the last element was sort of those links with the libraries. And I don't know how much you are linking with your local library. Here in Leicester, I've just started to make links with my local library services. We've just managed to get some free books, which are coming on Thursday. Do we all have links with the local libraries? Sort of. You know, going to trips with the local libraries, they should be pretty desperate to get you on board, if I'm honest with you, because we know about the cuts, and unfortunately there always seems to be cuts in the library services, so they need to prove that they've got the interest and the support of the community. So I would reach out to your libraries if you haven't yet made a link with your libraries. So then there's that becoming a proficient reader. So we talked about that, finding that balance of, are you developing that love for reading whilst also developing proficient readers? And I've got a little video here which talks a little bit about the reading house model. So I'm going to attempt to stop sharing and go on to another screen, which could be devastating, but let's try. Hi, hopefully everyone's been able to watch that. So I think it's really important to, though it talked about it being Key Stage 2, the building blocks are built right from the beginning, aren't they? And that fluency section is really important. It's just making sure that we're allowing children to really have a go at utilising the sounds that they already know. And we know that Ofsted, you know, they'll be looking at your phonics scheme, and they'll be looking at, you know, are your home reading books fully aligned with your phonics scheme? But I think the why is really important. It's not for Ofsted, it's actually for those children, isn't it? And making sure that you know, whoever is supporting that home reading scheme, whoever is supporting doing those one-to-one readers, really understands why you're doing what you're doing. An example here is one of my teaching assistants. She's teaching our higher ability children in reception, and they're doing what we call set 3 sounds in reception. And she says, but the book that they're reading's only got the beginning of set 2. And I said, that's because they're then getting ample opportunities to overlearn that sound before they see it in a text form. So they're just learning it, just seeing those green words. And now they're going to have to see it applied in text form. So giving children lots and lots of opportunity to overlearn it, but also be confident with it. And hopefully, you know, that's something that all of us really understand and appreciate. The other element kind of I wanted to talk about when we think about sort of building children that are confident with reading and proficient readers is making sure that our phonics, we have fidelity to it. So there's a lot of, I guess, debate out there talking about what is the right phonics scheme. If you look at any good phonics scheme, the fundamental building blocks are all the same. Probably no phonics scheme wants me to say that, but that's the truth of it. And the most important thing is, does everyone in your school understand how that phonics is taught? And is everyone got fidelity to it? Is everybody making sure that the CPD training isn't just like a one day and you're sent to a video if you get it wrong? And how does that work? And it, you know, depending on what level you're at in your sort of school, depending on what level you're at within your school, whether you're the teaching assistant teaching that small group, or the teacher, or the reading lead, communication is vital. If the reading lead isn't supporting you in the classroom, maybe they just don't know you need support. Team teaching is really valuable. I think I spend most of my time team teaching, actually, every time we regroup in phonics, because as you know, with most phonics schemes, as you begin to change the way you, as the child develops through the phonics scheme, the way it's taught is slightly adapted. And I want to make sure that my team understand every single step to that and are supported with it. And so, you know, reflecting on what your CPD offer is in your school is really important here. It's not just about buying a scheme that costs a lot of money and the books that go with it. What really makes a difference is everybody who's teaching it. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, if that's okay. All right, let's see if we can get back to where we were. Can you just let me know if you can see that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so pulling it back to what I was talking about, finding that balance. So we spoke a little bit about what love for reading is, and sort of the background to that, and we've talked about the proficiency of reading and watch that video on what that means. What I think is really helpful, regardless, like I said, what level you're on, is to think about what is your reading offer, and thinking about having like reading on one page. I found it quite interesting doing this as a leader, but even thinking about which elements of those would I know as a teacher, and making sure that we're all aware of the different things that we have available. I'm just going to go on, that's really small for me to read, so I'm just going to go on to a different page so I can talk to you a little bit. So I decided to break it down into key areas. So thinking about when is phonics taught, so phonics from the start, what phonics program are we using, and how is progress monitored? How do we ensure the books are matched to the sounds? How do we prioritize reading in the school? Thinking about who will be my early reading experts. And for me, the early reading experts are growing as we speak, because of the way that we've done the CPD for Read, Write, Ink in our school. It's been very hands-on, and the team teaching happens all the time. So now the team teaching is not just coming from myself, because I feel that we are true to the scheme. My team that are now confident in that area of Read, Write, Ink can now teach other members of the team. intervention to keep up. So what approach do you have? So I know it's different in different schools depending on your scheme again. So really thinking about that, and you know, how are you developing that love for reading? And I'm hoping all of you would be able to, if you know, I asked you to take 5 minutes out and just write as much as you can, would be able to come up with some key headlines. So I'm going to just challenge you now, if you have got a piece of paper next to you, hopefully you're not in a car now, based on those sort of headlines, can you outline what your reading offer is on a page? And if I give you a couple of minutes to do that, and hopefully some of you won't mind sharing. Okay, does anyone want to start on being brave? Anyone?
And I don't mind going ahead. The task was to kind of discuss about like what kind of, how you're incorporating like reading and things within the school. Is that correct?
Yep.
Like making it exciting. Yep. So I've written down the children getting dressed up for World Book Day, and then also while you're reading, like with them, or when they're reading, you can ask them questions about the story, like what do you like about the story and why, and just kind of engaging them with the story, and making, you know, kind of allowing them to be curious and like, oh, what do you think is going to happen next? Like asking those kind of questions, yeah, while you're reading. And then, like you've said before, like allowing that time for the children, for all of the children to spend some dedicated time reading as well. I think that makes it exciting for them. So yeah, things like that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to talk maybe about their phonics scheme, or how they, you know, have you got early reading experts? Do you have like a system in your school? Oh yeah, Renu.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Fantastic. Sorry I'm a bit late.
That's okay. Did you want to talk about your what your reading offer is in your school? Or did you just jump in and say hi?
I'm just jumping in. Can I just listen in for a little while?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, that's fine. Okay, everyone's a bit quiet today. That's fine. I'm just going to talk to you about my reading on one page, if that's okay then. So let me get that back up, because I'm having to switch between I'm having to switch between pictures here, so bear with me. Okay, so for me, when I was outlining reading on one page, the things I was talking about were things like that we do a six weekly half-termly assessment on our children to make sure that we know where our children are and they're regrouped according to those assessments. We have a nursery in our primary, so we make sure that phonics starts from the beginning there. It starts with phase 1, so your letters and sounds phase 1, and then by springtime we start to look at through our assessments who's ready to go on to Read Write Ink. So we currently do have some children accessing Read Write Ink, which is great, in our nursery. Reading's prioritised in our school through our high quality texts, the vocabulary that we use. We have traditional tales, texts weaved into our curriculum. We have a whole school reading week. So I know we just spoke there a little bit about World Book Day. We have a full week dedicated to it, where we celebrate schools' love for reading, storytellers. We have reading club. Our intervention is focused on our bottom 20%, which I'm sure most of you will be saying similar to. And our teachers and teaching assistants all know who those children are and what support that they get. And we have dedicated library slots, and we also do something called Stop Everything and Read. So that's where all the children, it's timetabled in, they literally stop what they're doing and they pick up a book and they have a go at reading. So just summarising that then, hopefully you can see I've just turned over to a grey slide there. Just sort of how that breaks down between that sort of proficient reader and that love for reading there. So my apologies, I'm having to switch pages whilst I'm talking to you. So the Proficient Reader is all about having that phonics from the start, the decodable books, effective and timely reading assessments, having decodable home reading books, having early reading experts, making sure we have effective CPD, developing you know, high parental engagement, making sure our information is up to date on our website about how children learn, and also having that stop everything and read. We've got, for our sort of love for reading, we've got, I'm sorry, I think someone's forgot to mute their mic, if you don't mind muting it, thank you. So we've got the school reading, we've got dedicated library slots, we've got homework related to story listening activities. So we have something called Discovery Education, which has like an espresso, not the coffee. It's a bit like Google in a sense that you can type anything in, but it's a safe space. It's got activities and a lot of things relating to reading on there. We also have just recently purchased Oxford Owl ebooks, so read writing ebooks as well. We have reading areas in all classes. Our learning environments, you'll see from those pictures there, we try and weave in stories wherever we can. So you'll see there with the role play there, the little boy reading about dinosaurs, or at least having a go at looking at those pictures. And I think it's really important that we're not scared to put out books that are at high level, because they're never going to come across a book that is just at their level. That's what the Proficient Reader route is about. But the love for reading is about, actually, I really like this book. I might not be able to read it, but I can ask someone for help, or I could just look at those pictures. And the picture there in the top right hand corner there, one of my teachers, totally her idea. Every day she has 2 books on show, and the children get to pick which book they would like to listen to at the end of the day. I put parental engagement on this side as well, because love for reading and becoming a proficient reader is supported by parents. We have storytelling links on our website. So this was quite interesting to do. I've got to say thank you to the media team. They made our stories look really good. And that's not me blowing my trumpet, because I can tell you, like I said, I've probably got dyslexia. I struggle to read things off the cuff, and I made plenty of mistakes in the story, but the music that they had in the background made it look really good. It was like Jack and Ori Jr. So I will send you a link to that, and if that's something you're interested in, please contact the media team in the trust, who I'm sure will help you with getting those stories recorded for your website as well. And then as I mentioned, stories weaved into the curriculum. So getting children to see that topics can stem from stories, and that can be an exciting way into getting your teeth into something. So celebrating reading. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about Reading Week and some of the things that we've done. I'm sure you've got great ideas, and please jump into the chat if you would like to share how your reading week has gone, and what kind of things you've done. But for our reading week, I think for a small primary, we went all out. We had a storyteller in on the Monday. We had a launch assembly. We had a book fair. So we used Scholastics, a company called Scholastics. It's basically free to do as long as you raise the money. Well, even if you don't raise the money, there's no repercussions for it. They just might not want you to run a fair in the next year. But it's like a pop-up bookshop. So you'll see it in that picture there. We ran that for 2 days, and the parents were involved. They were able to come and purchase using their World Book Day vouchers. We had 3 competitions running, one of them being on Twitter, where they could retell a story, which was really nice to watch children sort of get into the role and that love for reading. We had the World Book Day dress up, and then we also had workshops. So we got each class teacher to design their front door with their favourite storybook, and then the children got to pick which book they most liked, and then they got to walk through the door and find out who loved that book the most. And for an hour, they learnt about the story and got to do activities with them. So I did a story called Super Daisy. So I had my door semi-looking good, not as good as that kitchen disco one there, with Super Daisy on the front. The children were able to walk inside. We had a good time reading it. Children got involved with helping me tell the story. And then there were some various activities about being a superhero and making your own masks. Not as good as the Gruffalo one. I know that they made some chocolate Gruffalo beat thing, which anything with chocolate is obviously going to beat my workshop. But yeah, so the children had lots of fun. The point is that the children were engaged in the stories, and it was beyond sort of that phonics as we do daily with the children. So I've just wrote there at the end there about a reminder of the connection with the local library service, but also the book trust. So we're just receiving some of our free books this Thursday. Have we all made links with the book trust? Just spoke about local library service, but book trust, they have free books for the 3 to 4 year olds, especially nursery. And I think there is a reception pack as well. We were a bit late on getting that. Anyone want to shout out? Have we all made links with the book trust? If not, I would suggest that you have a look into that. It's always good to get a free book for the children. And also with the library service, and I don't know if this is the case across different libraries, it might be different where you are, but in Leicester you can enter a sort of an author competition. So you get there's, for example, 5 different authors, and the school receives those books for free, and the children get to read them. They get to take them home. We get to keep them as a school, but they also vote on their favourite author. So just try and make those links. I think they're really important. So one thing I was really passionate about is having a story-led curriculum. And I think it's really interesting when you're trying to create a story-led curriculum in a school that's already established, because there's never enough time to start from the beginning. Creating curriculum is hard. And I'm sure I don't know if you all feel like that, but when you're teaching and then you're trying to think of sort of next year or something like that, it's hard to get everyone together, and it's hard to get everything done and to make sure the progression is really there. And so I think a lot of schools have gone down the route of trying to buy in schemes to prevent that sort of mishmash or contradictions within the curriculum and the progression maps. But taking a strand at a time can be really helpful if you're trying to veer away from schemes or trying to adapt a scheme to make it more of your own. I've been lucky because I've been able to start from the beginning, and so it was kind of like, what do I want? And one of the things I was really passionate about was traditional tales, and making sure that each year group had a traditional tale. At the moment, as you can see from my progression map, I'm only up to year 4, but I do only have nursery and reception in, so I've not done too bad. But to make sure that there wasn't that repetition, or if there was, to make sure that their progression was there. So for example, in year 3, the children get to look at Cinderella, and they get to look at different versions of it. And one of the versions they sort of home into is a story called The Rough Faced Girl, which is based in North America, I want to say. And it's just bringing other cultures and how traditional tales are slightly adapted or slightly changed or retold in a slightly different way, and getting children to sort of be able to be familiar with the language of storytelling. So that once upon a time, which feeds very well in your writing, but also seeing those adaptations as they go along. One of the year groups that I love teaching is the one with the 3 wolves, because I talk about the wolf's journey. So I don't know if you're familiar with the 3 little wolves and the big bad pig. I'm sure most of us are familiar with the 3 little pigs and the little red hen, but I do it as a wolf's journey. So the wolf starts out as a child, has a really bad experience with his brothers because a big bad pig seems to blow down all their houses. So he ends up growing up not liking wolves and actually kind of likes the taste of them. So as he grows up, he then becomes the big bad wolf and he tries to eat the pigs, but then he gets his bum burned. So he thinks, okay, forget this. I'm not going to go to pigs anymore. I'm going to try and get children. So the three texts, the traditional tale texts, well, the two out of the three, the traditional tales are sort of spun together. And then you can start getting diary entries in and all sorts of writing that can come along with that enhancement of the stories themselves. How do your schools approach traditional tales? I'm assuming you all do traditional tales in some form. Has anyone got anything they would like to share about that? I'm going to take, oh, go on.
Sorry, Anita. Ours is, so we tend to do ours just after Christmas. So it's actually a topic and we do it throughout a half term. Which works quite well, but then we also try to link. So for example, now we're doing Ready Steady Grow as our topic, but then we're linking it to Jack and the Beanstalk. So we do still try to link traditional tales where we can.
Brilliant. And is that something that all year groups do in that term, or is it just in
early years? Yeah, just early years. And then the rest of the school do look at traditional tales, but they look at it through Talk for Writing.
Got you. Yeah. So it's similar with ours. The traditional tales, though, hopefully, if you were to walk in our corridors on autumn term 2, you should be able to see that from nursery all the way to year 6, everyone is studying a traditional tale through their reading and their literacy in some form. So for me, I felt that was quite a powerful tool in the children understanding on the progression and how you can really delve deep in traditional tales, and that they're not surface level texts, they actually can be quite deep. So a couple of things to reflect on now. And again, this screen is so small, so I'm going to switch screens myself so I can read what I've actually written on the PowerPoint. So to reflect on sort of reading systems and strategies, this quote from The Guardian, which I think is really interesting, about the study of sort of ebooks versus paper. And it's not the only study that's taken place, but it did. I just thought it was interesting, the fact that it talked about sort of that comprehension side and that ability to sort of really get into the story was less than if it was an actual book itself. So I don't know how your home reading works or what reading you have on offer, but I know at the moment there's a lot of ebook opportunities. So for example, I mentioned to you that we've just put Oxford Owl ebook for Read Write Inc, which I do think is great, but I also make sure that all the children go home with a physical reading book. Do all our children in the different schools go home with physical books, or is it ebooks and physical books, or is it ebooks alone?
It's just physical books in our school.
Anybody else? Yeah, I think people are moving to more of a sort of having a hybrid model. Oh, we've got there 2 physical books, brilliant. So the way we do it at Avanti Fields, we have a book of their choice, so a love for reading book that they can have as a bedtime story. They have then their book at their level, and then they get also assigned a book online that is at their reading level. And I think it's just to be wary to make sure that you have that balance, because if our research is saying that actually the digestion of an ebook is not as powerful as a paper book, potentially, then we just need to make sure that we have covered all bases there. But in the same breath, I know that there are children, and my son is a prime example of this, who just don't want to pick up a book at the moment. I don't know whether it's just me, my lack of ability to be a mom versus teacher, but I definitely can't do my teacher strategies on my son. And he just won't read with me. So if he has it on his Oxford Owl that his school has, he will. which is a little bit sad, but I need to get him to read somehow. So I think it's great that we are utilising the digitisation of books, but just making sure that we do have that balance based on research. And the other piece of evidence there is a strong evidence that interactive reading can improve language and communication in the early years. So I know that for those who have attended the early years meetings, we had a representative from CAPS, Vishali, who was talking about, I'm 99% sure it's Vishali now, who was talking about Talk for Writing, and that's like an example of interactive reading. And I will talk to you a little bit more about what interactive reading is in the next slide. But just thinking about your approaches to reading, and is that consistent, like the expectations on how stories are read and how, you know, why are they read in certain ways at certain points in the day, for example? And is it just teacher-led, or do our teaching assistants have the same strategies and skill set alongside the professional development in order to achieve a really good interactive reading session with our children? And the last one there is teaching phonics is more effective on average than other approaches to early reading, though it should be emphasised that effective phonics techniques are usually embedded in rich literacy environments for early readers and are only one part of successful literacy strategy. I remember in my old school, I shall not say the name, but when we introduced Read, Write, Ink, it just became like read, write, ink crazy, and that love for reading kind of just fell off, and everything was just phonics, 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 phonics. You couldn't miss a day of it. It was intense, and it's just making sure that you're aware that absolutely phonics is a great way, when it's taught with fidelity, it's a great way of developing children's reading, but there are other things as well, isn't there? And if we don't get that balance right, and we're not just talking about the love for reading, but generally that balance right on our curriculum, that children can fall out of love with reading. So interactive reading. So just a moment for reflection. How involved do your children get with storytelling? We talk about, you know, when you're doing the carpet time, like the ratio between the teacher talk and the child talk. What's that like in storytelling? So interactive reading is a way to think about this. So the adult engages in considered actions within the context of shared reading. That could be either be one-to-one or in a group, that encourage children to become an active participant in reading the book. Over time, the balance of who reads or facilitates discussions about the book being read passes increasingly to the child. And I think what's really important here, and it you know, Talk for Writing is a prime example of how interactive reading can be developed, but just the point that reading a book once, you know, is not going to allow a child to really absorb things. And if you really want them to learn through a text, to give them lots of opportunities to be playful with that text. Has anyone got any great examples of interactive reading they would like to share? You're a quiet bunch today.
We often use puppets. So
Yep.
we're in the early years, so we've got sort of developed some story sacks, and so they might use puppets to tell stories that they're familiar with or join in with the stories that we're telling.
Do you know what I think is absurd? The cost of puppets and the cost of Small World. I don't know if anyone else is with me on that, but do you know what? As much as I would like to have lots of story sacks and lots of Small World that are with the stories, my goodness, it's so expensive. And yes, we have managed to get a few examples in of key texts, but it's really sad. So if anyone's got any top tips of key stories that they've managed to pull together as a story sack on the cheap, please feel free to email them to me. I'm sure everyone else would be interested in that too. Thank you for that comment. Okay, so lastly, prioritizing. We involve the children in making characters and props. Yeah, that's always good. Role play as well. using those props and putting them in the role play is always a great way of getting children in being interactive with a story. Thank you. So the last video I'm just going to pop in the chat because clearly my sharing tool is not working. It's about reading fluency in the primary. So just bear with me a moment and I will send through the link. Okay, hopefully most of you have been able to access that. If you like I said, if you've not been able to access anything, we will make sure the PowerPoint will go out to you after this. So I think just the bit I want to just emphasize there is the importance of allowing children to read a book more than once. So read writing, the way that it works is that the children read the text for, well, most children at their early stages are on a 5-day program. So just thinking about your phonics program, whether it has books linked to it and whether those, how often are those books read at school, with the assumption that potentially home reading is not taking place. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about their reading offer regarding sort of fluency? Okay, so the point, go on, Tim.
Hey,
go
Anita.
for it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I was just going to mention our school's had a big push on echo reading, which helps with fluency so much, and we've been doing it loads in early years with the Twinkle Phonics PowerPoints, because the Twinkle Phonics, like the new approved scheme, it's all based around stories, and they're really fantastic and engaging with the children absolutely love them. And so we do echo reading every single phonics lesson, and I've noticed just such a big, I think I've noticed a really big change and a big difference in the just the way that children are engaging with the lessons, but then also with how they're then reading with us, you know, one-to-one when we're doing our interventions and our focused like adult directed reading. So yeah, I think that's been really, really great.
Brilliant, thank you. Tim, just asking about the echo reading, because I just want to make sure I've got my head around this, because I don't think anyone else is going to ask. Is it where you read and they repeat after you, or is it paired reading?
Yeah, no, it's when the teacher reads, or you know, adult reads, and then they respond. But I think one of the sort of the big pushes with it is that the adult reads in a really exaggerated kind of over the top way.
Yeah.
So that it helps children to understand what they're reading, you know, with like the context of it and everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess it works in a big group, but also like a small group better than sort of one-to-one. I mean, it does work one-to-one, of course, but I think when they're hearing their friends and their peers sort of reading in that kind of exaggerated way, they kind of understand the text more, and it works, I think, really well in the early years.
Brilliant. So yeah, it's just, I guess the bit I want you to reflect on is as a team is you know, whatever phonics model you have and however you do, whether that's individual reading or group reading, is just, are those children, whatever that text is, are they having opportunities to really engage in that text, you know, 3-4 times or at least 3 times a week, to really sort of build up their confidence with the fluency. And like, you know, Tim was mentioning there with echo reading, sort of getting that intonation in, and through that intonation you're then starting to understand the vocabulary in context. So yeah, that's it from me. I just wanted to say thank you for coming today. I have been told there is a questionnaire to complete, so you'll be happy that I've finished early. There's a questionnaire for all of Auntie School's Trust staff, so if you want to use the rest of this time to complete the questionnaire, and if you have any questions, I will stay on for the next however long if you need me. So thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anita, I had one question.
Well, I'm looking at who am I talking to? Okay, yeah, hi.
Okay, we come to work. So if you've got a child, so we're in reception, and there are just sort of that handful of children that just don't want to read, as you know, some children just aren't interested, and although they're really good at telling the stories and looking at the picture books and giving really good narratives, the blending, you know, we go over and over and over it with them and it just doesn't seem to be sticking. Is there any sort of interactive fun ideas that you can think of that might help them just to get it to stick?
So do you think the reason that you don't want to read is because they can't blend?
I think it's their development. They're not at that developmental stage yet that it's interesting enough to them, as it were, because they're quite, those that aren't sort of looking to do it are quite young, whereas others are sort of really flying with it. But the few that we've got are quite young for the year.
So one thing is really important is that you understand your scheme. So what does your scheme tell you to do? So for example, with Read, Write, Ink, it tells us to do a lot of Fred talk.
Yeah, so
and I know
that's
you
what
might
we're doing.
Right, okay. So but also bearing in mind that other layer before like your scheme will start. So that letters and sounds phase 1, just making sure that they've got all those elements, because that might be a barrier to them being able to access the oral blending and segment it. Can they already blend and segment?
Orally, 2 of them, yes.
Yeah.
But one of them sort of no, will recognise sounds, but that's as far as we go. So maybe taking it right back to that phase 1.
Yeah, I would say so. Just making sure that you've got all those gaps plugged for them. And then, did you say you do read writing?
Yeah.
So is who's doing the one-to-one with them, their interventions?
So it's the class TA that's doing the one-to-one interventions at the moment, and then I do it through their weekly reading as well.
Okay, so who you know, I'm just asking you because this is something I wanted to make sure I quality assured, is just making sure you've quality assured how that one-to-one is taking place. And if you're not sure, going back to your reading lead saying, actually, I'm not quite sure how the one-to-one session goes, because there's different stages of the one-to-one session. So are they using like the individual cards where they put the cards together and they begin to blend them?
Yeah.
Is it that? Yeah. So just making sure that there's not a trick being missed there, because I know that sounds really like pernickety, but it does make a difference. So I would say doing that, making sure that you know, that you feel confident that they've achieved that sort of phase 1 element of it. But and also, I mean, you've probably done this silliest of things, checking that you know, their eyesight is okay, like just double checking with their parents. And are they reading the letter? Are they sounding it out but just not blending it? So they've got their sound recognition. But
yeah, so they can hear the sounds, they know the sounds, all of that's fine. It's just sort of the blending.
I think engaging them with Fred talk. You know what I've done in my school, which is, it's not a direct correlation, but it has built a relationship with Fred, is we do something called Fred diaries. So Fred goes home with a class member each week, and they just write about whatever they've done with Fred. But it's kind of built that momentum and that relationship that Fred is fun. I mean, it's a long shot, but it's
I do have 2 Freds, so I could do that actually.
Yeah, we bought extra Freds just for that. But it's done really well. Like, I think the parents love it more than the kids, actually. We actually had to put up a rota because they kept asking, when is it their turn to have Fred? But it has engaged them with that sort of acting out of Fred, and just making sure everyone's really comfortable with that acting part of it. Because there is a bit, you know, like, you can do everything on the tick list about phonics, but it doesn't mean you've like done it in an interesting way. Like, if you watch the videos, they're really like capturing, aren't they, over exaggerating CBB style. And just making sure that whoever's working with those children has got that sort of intonation and flair about them.
Okay, fab.
That comes with confidence. All right.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I couldn't be much more help.
That's all right. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you.